Hey there, and welcome to this explainer. Look, if you're out there desperately counting calories, running on a treadmill for hours on end, and just staring at the scale with zero results, you are not alone. But the clinical research we're unpacking today, it's going to completely shatter everything you thought you knew about weight loss. Because we aren't talking about standard belly fat here. We're targeting the silent killer within, visceral fat. Let's dive into exactly why it's so dangerous, how it actually harms you, and most importantly, how we can eradicate it right at the source. Okay, so here's our roadmap for today. We're going to start with the hidden threat, then move into the cortisol trap. After that, we'll explore the carnivore solution, followed by environmental hormetics and sprints. And finally, we'll tie the whole shebang together with a master therapeutic protocol. Let's get into it. Section 1. The hidden visceral fat threat. Or as I like to call it, why your bathroom scale is literally lying to you. So I've got a very real kind of piercing question for you. Are you normal weight but metabolically obese? Because here's the truth about the skinny fat reality. Even if you look completely thin in the mirror, it is what's happening internally that dictates your survival. We really need to uncover the truth about this, because stepping on a scale, it absolutely cannot tell you what's going on inside. And that brings us to a concept called TOFI. It stands for thin on the outside, fat on the inside. So many people walk around with a literally perfect BMI, yet they are carrying around these dense, dangerous volumes of inflammatory internal visceral fat. Because they look fine visually, they're completely unaware that their mortality risk is just skyrocketing behind the scenes. Now, to understand why visceral fat is so dangerous, we have to contrast it. Subcutaneous fat, the jiggly stuff we usually complain about for cosmetic reasons, is actually pretty benign. It's just a storage sink. But visceral fat, that is a massive endocrine threat. It actually acts as a disease tissue matrix that literally wraps around your heart, your liver, your pancreas. It continuously dumps inflammatory cytokines directly into your bloodstream. It is quite literally silently suffocating your organs. All right, moving to section 2, the cortisol accumulation trap. Let's play detective and figure out why standard diet and exercise advice utterly fails when it comes to this type of fat. Here is the bottom line, guys. Counting calories is a massive mistake if you're trying to target visceral fat. The whole calories in, calories out model, it completely ignores your body's endocrine signaling. See, when processed foods alter your gut microbiome, they allow inflammatory agents like LPS to cross the gut barrier. And when that happens, it effectively locks visceral fat in place. At that point, it doesn't matter how little you eat, the fat isn't going anywhere. And check out this crazy paradox when it comes to exercise. Going for a long, moderate jog, chronic cardio, actually pushes you into a trap. The endocrine mechanism of cortisol kicks in and commands your body to hoard and protect that deep belly fat. On the flip side, we have sprint exercises. Doing maximum effort sprints for under 30 seconds creates this massive explosion of catecholamines. Why do sprints burn excess fat so well? Because this acute, intense hormonal spike entirely bypasses cortisol and forcefully oxidizes those stubborn visceral stores. It's a total game changer. Okay, section 3, the living carnivore solution. Let's talk about the specific dietary interventions you need to actually rebuild your internal ecosystem. You might be wondering, how exactly does the carnivore diet burn fat? Well, we use something called the living carnivore protocol. The foundation here is grass-fed ruminants and wild seafood, but it's strictly combined with fermented foods. Think things like kefir or kimchi. One of the biggest benefits of this specific carnivore approach is that it excludes all non-fermented plants. That means you are completely avoiding gut-irritating anti-nutrients like lectins and oxalates, allowing your gut to finally heal. When you stack these diets side by side, it gets really clear. The living carnivore protocol is the gold standard because its main job is rebuilding that gut lining. Keto? Well, keto is only conditional. It's okay, but it still permits a lot of mildly inflammatory plant anti-nutrients. And the widely praised Mediterranean diet? For our specific goals here, it's a fallacy. It still permits inflammatory carbohydrates like grains, which keep your insulin perpetually high, and high insulin sustains visceral fat. Period. Which brings us to section 4, sprints, thermals, and circadian rhythms. Because beyond what you eat and how you move, your environmental inputs play an absolutely crucial role.
I want to introduce you to the circadian rhythm lifestyle method for building real cellular resilience. It's a 4-step daily routine. Step 1, getting morning sunrise light in your eyes to reset your biological clock. Steps 2 and 4 are where we get the immense benefits from thermal therapy. A cold plunge and a dry sauna force your body to release cold and heat shock proteins, which massively reduce systemic inflammation. Throw in step 3, those hyper-intense under 30-second sprints we talked about, and you have literally built a visceral fat-burning machine.
Now, I want you to consider a fascinating biological concept called the predatory mandate. Look, human biology is hardwired to thrive when we feel secure. If you are dealing with chronic financial stress or professional struggles, that low-level survival panic constantly raises your baseline cortisol. And when that happens, your body absolutely refuses to let go of visceral fat. It thinks a famine is coming. So life stability isn't just nice to have, it's quite literally a biological requirement for fat loss. All right, section 5. Let's bring all of this together. We're going to synthesize this clinical data into a highly actionable master therapeutic protocol from A to H. First up, let's talk interventions and supplements. You have to be incredibly wary of synthetic shortcuts. Things like GLP-1 agonists might force weight off, sure, but they come with a super high risk of lean muscle loss, and they completely bypass your body's natural regulatory feedback loops. Instead, the clinical literature heavily recommends natural fermented foods to rebuild your gut microbiome from the ground up. So here is the first half of the protocol, A through D. The biggest thing you must internalize here is point C, commitment to consistency. I cannot stress this enough. There is absolutely zero room for cheat days. Having a cheat day and introducing processed foods or sugars, even occasionally, immediately feeds harmful gut bacteria and can literally undo weeks of metabolic progress in a single weekend. Moving to the second half, E through H, we're incorporating prolonged fasting here, anywhere from 24 to 72 hours to trigger deep cellular autophagy. You combine that with hyper-brief fight-or-flight training, which means maxing out at 15 minutes of exercise every 3 days to optimize your hormones without spiking chronic cortisol. And finally, point H, please throw your bathroom scale in the trash. You need high-precision tracking, like an MRI scanner, to actually see the direct reduction of fat inside your organs. That's the only metric that matters. So, I'll leave you with this final provocative question. Are you going to keep obsessing over a totally useless number on a piece of plastic on your bathroom floor, or are you ready to completely change your approach and target the silent killer within? It's time to let the science guide you. Thank you so much for joining me for this explainer, and I'll see you in the next one.